She walked into a room full of billionaires, hands shaking, heart racing, and every eye on her, carrying a tray of drinks. They laughed, they doubted her, they underestimated her, and even invited her to join them. But Maya Ellis wasn't there to serve their expectations. She was about to make a move that would shock them all, ignite a battle they'd never forget, and change her life forever. Maya stepped closer to the table, unsure if she was walking into opportunity or danger. And then one billionaire leaned back, smirked, and said words that would change everything. Sit. Play with us. I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city or town in the comments below. I love seeing how far this story reaches and connecting with every one of you who's joining Maya on her journey. Maya Ellis, 27 years old, moved through the rooftop restaurant like she'd learned to float instead of walk. The chandeliers above cast warm gold light over the rich and powerful of New York City, but none of it ever seemed to reach her. She carried plates and glasses with quiet grace, her eyes catching every detail. How someone tapped their fork when nervous, how another hid anger behind a smile. She didn't say much, but she noticed everything. Her mother used to say, "Baby, the world won't always treat you right, but you better know how to read it." Maya had learned fast. She remembered the long nights her mother worked 2 jobs, the eviction notices, the fear in their apartment in Maryland. She promised herself she would rise above all of it, even if she had to climb through the shadows to get there. Still, small humiliations found her every day. Tonight, a man snapped his fingers at her like she was nothing more than a button to press. Another complained she smiled too little, as if she was decoration instead of a person. Maya breathed through it, steady and calm, the way her father taught her when they used to play cards at the kitchen table. Poker wasn't just a game. It was survival, reading people, understanding danger before it hit. During her break, she watched the billionaire poker table from a distance. Nothing tells without meaning to. Then she heard a voice behind her say, "You. Sit with us. Play." Maya stepped toward the table as if she were walking onto thin ice. For billionaires stared at her with the same cold curiosity someone might give a stray animal wandering into the wrong room. Their suits were sharp, their watches louder than their hearts, and every one of them looked at her like she didn't belong. Victor Hawthorne, the man who had called her over, leaned back in his chair with a lazy grin, swirling his drink. "Don't be shy," he said. "It's just a game." Maya's pulse quickened. She had never sat at a table like this, not with men who built empires from steel and software. She could almost hear her father's voice. "Don't let fear shake your hands. People show their power first, their weakness second." Still, she hesitated. She had a shift to finish. She needed this job, and she knew people like them didn't bring her into their world to treat her gently. "I really should get back to." Victor cut her off with a wink. "Sit. 1 round. I'll cover your buy-in." The others chuckled under their breath, already writing her off. Maya lowered herself into the empty chair. The leather was cold. Her breath steadied. She watched the men, observing the twitch of a jaw, the tapping of a ring, the way one man's eyes darted toward his chips too often. The dealer slid her 2 cards. She didn't even look nervous. Maya lifted the cards, glanced once, then calmly pushed forward a raise so large it wiped the smirks off every face at the table. The room went dead silent. Wow, can you believe Maya's first move at the table? If that gave you chills, go ahead and hit the like button. It really helps support the story. And don't forget to subscribe so you can follow every twist and turn of Maya's journey. Share this video with someone who loves stories about courage, surprises, and proving the world wrong. You never know who might need a little inspiration today. For a moment, the table just stared at her, for men worth more than small countries, blinking like they'd been slapped. Then the laughter broke out, sharp and echoing across the glass walls of the rooftop lounge. "Oh, that's adorable," one of them snickered. "Beginner's luck already?" Another shook his head. Bold move for someone who probably thinks poker is just matching colors. Victor smirked, swirling his drink again. "Let her play. It'll be fun watching her burn through my money." Maya didn't flinch. She'd heard every kind of disrespect before. Customers talking over her, talking through her, talking like she wasn't even a person standing inches from their table. But here, under their mocking eyes, she felt the old quiet fire inside her begin to rise. Her father had always said, "People try to shrink what they fear. Watch their hands." Watch their breathing. The truth sits there. So she watched. The man on her left tapped his pinky against his chips whenever he liked his hand. The one across from her stared too long at his cards, a sure sign of weakness. Victor tried to disguise his confidence, but the tiny lift of his eyebrow always betrayed him. One billionaire leaned forward with a practiced, charming smile. "You're cute," he said softly. "But this won't end well." Maya returned a polite, empty smile. "We'll see." The final card hit the table. Gasps rippled. The men scrambled to gather their thoughts as Maya quietly revealed her hand. A perfectly timed combination that toppled every single one of them. The pot slid toward her. She had won the entire round. The room cracked open in shock. Whispers fluttered through the restaurant like nervous birds. Among the servers, muted gasps. From the rich guests, surprised glances shot her way. Word spread fast at the Aurelia, the black waitress who had just cleaned up a high-stakes poker table. Some eyes held admiration, others disbelief, many silent disapproval. Maya felt the weight of those looks. She wiped a glass with steady hands, chest tight, but she didn't flinch. Across the room, the wealthy guests returned to their dinners, but their voices softened. Someone mentioned her name in a low tone, curiosity gleaming. The servers offered furtive nods, as if acknowledging someone they didn't truly see before. Victor Hawthorne sat back, his drink cradled in his hand, eyes locked on Maya. That lazy grin was gone. Now he watched her with something unreadable: interest, respect, maybe warning. His posture was still calm, but the tension around him pulled tight, like a coiled spring. She approached him, soft. "Excuse me, I should get back to work," she said, voice quiet, polite. She waited for permission, hoping the night would end like any other, untouched. Victor didn't smile. He didn't nod. Instead, he lifted a finger, pointing toward the empty chair across from him. "No," he said, voice low. "You don't get to leave yet. We're playing another round." His tone held steel. Maya's breath hitched. The men leaned forward. The room went quiet again. "Same buy-in," Victor added. Then he paused. "But this one, 10 times." Maya lowered herself into the chair again, her stomach tight, but her face calm. She didn't want to play. She didn't want the attention, the danger, or the eyes of the entire rooftop turning toward her like she was a spectacle built for their entertainment. But Victor's voice left no room for refusal, and she needed this job more than she needed pride. The cards slid across the table. This time, there was no laughter, no jokes, no lazy smirks. The billionaires leaned in with sharpened focus, the way predators shift when they realize the prey might have teeth. Their moves became tighter, more strategic, each one trying to corner her into a mistake. Maya's heart drummed, and her thoughts slipped to the note taped inside her kitchen cabinet. Rent due in 5 days. She'd been $50 short last month. One wrong turn tonight could cost her everything. Victor lifted his glass as if toasting her, then made a monstrous raise. The kind meant to crush confidence. The kind designed to push her out of the game completely. He leaned casually in his chair, pretending he wasn't watching her reaction. But Maya caught the tiny twitch in his jaw, the same one she had memorized earlier. He was bluffing. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. People don't lie with their words. They lie with their bodies. Maya inhaled slowly. Then she pushed every chip forward, calling his bet with unshakable calm. Victor revealed his cards, and the table erupted because his hand was nowhere near what he claimed it was. For a moment, the entire rooftop froze. Then chaos cracked through the air like a dropped glass. One billionaire slammed his hand on the table. "Victor, what the hell was that? You said you had her cornered." Another shook his head, muttering, "You're slipping, man. Losing to a waitress? This is embarrassing." Victor's jaw clenched so hard Maya thought she heard his teeth grind. His face burned red, not from anger alone, from humiliation. The richest man at the table, publicly undone by someone he believed beneath him. Across the room, security took notice. 2 guards glanced toward the table, speaking quietly into their earpieces, unsure whether to step in or stay back. The tension around Victor gathered like a storm. Maya felt every eye drilling into her. She didn't want a scene. She didn't want trouble. She just wanted to breathe, to get away from the suffocating heat of their egos. So she rose slowly from her chair, hands steady, voice gentle. "Thank you for the game," she said. "I should return to my shift now." She took one step back, then another. She could almost taste freedom, almost feel the relief of slipping back into the familiar rhythm of serving tables. Her heart beat hard, ready to escape the room. But before she could take a third step, a hand shot out. Victor's fingers clamped around her wrist, cold and tight. His voice dropped to a controlled, dangerous whisper. "Sit," he said. "We're not done." Victor's grip tightened just enough for Maya to feel the threat beneath his skin. His smile was gone now, replaced by something darker, sharper, stripped of the easy charm he showed the world. His voice was low, almost calm, but edged like broken glass. "You don't walk away from me," he said. "Not after that." Maya's breath fluttered. She knew pride could be dangerous, but this was different. Victor wasn't playing anymore. He was wounded, and wounded men with power were the most unpredictable. She pulled her wrist free slowly, not wanting to trigger something worse. One of the other billionaires, an older man with tired eyes, leaned toward her and spoke quietly, disguised under the noise of the room. "Miss, you should leave," he murmured. "Victor doesn't handle public embarrassment well. Trust me." His warning sounded more like fear than kindness. Maya nodded slightly, her pulse quickening. She didn't want another second at this table. She didn't want their anger, their money, or whatever twisted game Victor thought he was still playing. She just wanted out. But Victor straightened in his chair, and the room seemed to tilt around him. He snapped his fingers at the dealer, an older woman who froze mid-shuffle. "No more little games," Victor said, voice rising. "We're settling this properly." He pointed at the chips, then at Maya. "Winner takes all." The table fell silent. The dealer swallowed nervously. Maya stared at him, stunned. Victor leaned forward, eyes unblinking. "Deal," he commanded. "She's the target." For a moment, Maya's vision blurred. The lights of the rooftop faded, replaced by the soft glow of her childhood kitchen in Maryland. She was 9 again, sitting across from her father at a wobbly table covered in mismatched cards. He tapped the deck gently, smiling the way only he could, warm, patient, unshaken by the world outside their cracked windows. "Poker isn't about luck, baby girl," he'd say. "It's about reading what people don't want you to see. Their fear, their pride, their truth." She remembered how he guided her hands, showing her how to hold the cards like they weren't just paper, but choices, power, freedom. Then came her mother's voice, firm and protective as she adjusted the second-hand uniform she wore to her third shift of the week. "Listen to me, Maya," her mother whispered, brushing a curl from her face. "Don't ever let anyone tell you who you are. Don't shrink for anyone. Not ever." Those lessons stayed with her long after her father passed, long after her mother's exhaustion carved itself into their walls. They built the fire in her that never went out. Never let anyone belittle you again. She had promised herself that. The memory slipped away as the rooftop came back into focus. The dealer's hands moved quickly, almost nervously, sliding cards across the polished wood. Maya swallowed, steadying her breath as she picked up her hand. Her heart sank. It was terrible, the kind of opening hand that could destroy her in seconds. Across the table, Victor smiled. Victor leaned back, his grin sharp, eyes glinting with malice. "That hand looks familiar," he taunted. "Maybe you're just lucky again." His tone dripped with the kind of amusement meant to unnerve, to remind her she was still a visitor in their world. Maya felt a tight knot in her stomach, a whisper of panic, but she swallowed it down. Her hands were steady, her face calm. Fear could be seen and exploited, and she had no intention of giving him that weapon. She folded twice, quietly, watching the subtle changes in their postures. The twitch of a finger here, the blink too slow there. Each a window into the pride and the lies they tried to hide. She was learning, memorizing, waiting. A flash of memory crossed her mind. Her father leaning close, whispering strategies in her ear. She let herself pray silently, his voice a shield. See through them. Trust yourself. Don't flinch. Victor scoffed, waving her cautious plays off as amateur hesitation. "Come on," he said, almost playfully. "Show me what you've got." Maya's chest tightened. She glanced at her cards. The hand was terrible, practically a suicide in any regular game. But her mind raced through every observation of the table, every detail she had noted since she arrived. And then, in a move that froze the room, she pushed every chip forward. All in. The men's laughter caught in their throats. The tension snapped like a live wire. Every eye turned toward her, wide with disbelief. She smiled faintly, hiding the pulse of fear in her chest. Gasps echoed around the table. The billionaires froze, disbelief etched into every line of their expensive faces. Some leaned back, unable to process what had just happened. Others clenched their fists, muttering under their breath. The carefully curated world of superiority they had built was cracking in front of them, and the fault line led straight to Maya. Victor's eyes narrowed, the smirk fading into a cold, calculating frown. She must be bluffing, he muttered to himself, voice low but venomous. His hand tightened around his glass, knuckles white. He stared at her like a lion watching a clever prey it could not yet pounce upon. For the first time, she saw him hesitate, and it gave her a small, fleeting surge of power. Maya exhaled softly, almost imperceptibly. A soft smile touched her lips, not from victory, not yet, but from the simple knowledge that she had held her ground. She had turned their assumptions upside down, and for a heartbeat, the weight of all their egos rested in her hands. The room was quiet, the hum of tension vibrating off the walls. Everyone waited. Victor's fingers moved, revealing his cards with deliberate care. His near-perfect hand glinted under the chandelier light. A collective intake of breath swept the table. Maya's stomach dropped. The room held its breath as the implications hit. She was facing the impossible, the kind of hand that could end everything in a single flip. The tension was electric, unyielding. And then Victor leaned forward, eyes locked on hers, smiling darkly. The room exhaled as if relief had been handed to Victor on a silver platter. Everyone assumed Maya had lost. Chairs creaked as men leaned forward, eyes gleaming, eager to claim the pot. Victor's fingers hovered over the chips, confident, his smirk returning with renewed arrogance. Maya felt the heat rise in her cheeks, the sting of their anticipation pressing against her resolve. She offered a soft, polite apology, voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry for wasting your time, she said, tilting her head, hiding the tremor of excitement in her chest. A few guests murmured in agreement, nodding as if the performance of the table had already ended. But Maya's fingers didn't move. Her eyes scanned the cards one last time. Every observation, every tell she had memorized, every twitch of every hand. Everything had led to this moment. Victor leaned back, chuckling, preparing to scoop up the pot. The room's air felt like water, thick and suffocating with expectation. Then Maya lifted her final card, slowly, deliberately. The table went silent again, the kind of silence that makes the blood in your ears seem deafening. Her card completed a straight, a perfect, impossible straight. The one combination that should have been unattainable against Victor's near-perfect hand. Eyes widened. Forks and glasses trembled on the table. A ripple of shock passed through the billionaires. Victor's jaw fell slightly, disbelief overtaking the calculated control he had tried to maintain. Maya's calm gaze met his, steady and unflinching. You, he began, voice tight, almost strangled. The room held its breath, waiting for the fallout. Victor sat frozen, the color draining from his face. The room's air had shifted, heavy with tension and disbelief. His empire of arrogance had crumbled in front of his peers, and the humiliation was raw, burning across his skin like fire. The laughter that had once masked power was gone, replaced by awkward murmurs and exchanged glances. For the first time, Victor was small, stripped of the carefully constructed invincibility he relied on. Maya remained seated, heart steady, though adrenaline still pulsed through her veins. She felt the weight of every eye in the room, some awed, some resentful, some furious. She didn't celebrate. She merely observed, letting the shock settle where it belonged, on them. One of the older billionaires finally broke the silence. He clapped slowly, deliberately, a smirk tugging at his lips. Well played, he said. I didn't expect that. You've got talent. The applause was brief, polite, but sincere. Maya's lips curved into a faint, soft smile in response. A spark of pride warmed her chest. Victor's eyes narrowed, a storm darkening behind them. He leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. You think this ends tonight? He hissed, his tone edged with malice and a promise of retaliation. Do you know who you just humiliated? The room tensed, the clinking of glasses and quiet murmurs fading into the background. Maya's stomach sank. For a moment, The thrill of victory collided with the sharp edge of fear. Victor's hand slammed onto the table, rattling the chips. "You've just made a powerful enemy," he said. And the energy in the room shifted again, ominous, foreboding, alive with threat. Maya stepped out onto the wet streets of New York, the city lights blurred by rain streaming down her face. The night air stung as if reminding her she was mortal, fragile, and alone. The taste of adrenaline and fear lingered on her tongue. Victor's words replayed relentlessly. "You think this ends tonight?" She knew he had power, connections that could reach beyond this rooftop, into every corner of her life. Her umbrella did little to shield her from the storm, so she ran, boots splashing through puddles, heart hammering in rhythm with the rain. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every passing car a potential witness or messenger. She thought about her mother's warnings, her father's lessons. Strategy and caution were all she had, but even they felt fragile tonight. Reaching the quiet of her small apartment in New Jersey, she dialed her best friend, Tasha. The familiar voice on the other end brought warmth, grounding her. They spoke softly, Maya recounting only the barest details, trying to calm the racing pulse of her chest. Tasha's laughter and concern felt like a tether to the world, a reminder she was more than this game, more than their scrutiny. But when she returned to work the next morning, dread gripped her stomach like ice. Her locker, once filled with her belongings, was empty. Her name had been removed from the schedule. A chill ran down her spine. Someone had already made a move, and she knew, without a doubt, it was him. Maya stormed into the restaurant the next morning, hoping for answers. Management met her with tight smiles and carefully chosen words, avoiding the real question. "Your schedule was updated," one manager said. Nothing else to discuss. No explanation. No apology. It was clear Victor had interfered. Her stomach churned, a mix of anger and fear twisting inside her. She spent the day in a haze, serving tables with practiced calm, but her mind raced. Every glance from a guest, every whispered conversation among staff, reminded her that her victory at the poker table had consequences far beyond the rooftop. People like Victor didn't forgive. They didn't forget. And they had resources that could ruin her life with a single phone call. By evening, Maya knew she couldn't wait for permission or understanding. She left the restaurant and began walking the streets of Manhattan, eyes scanning job postings, cafes, anything that could be her lifeline. Her resume was polished, her references solid, but every interview brought the same subtle judgment. The unspoken "can she survive here?" weighing heavily against her. Her phone buzzed. A man in a dark coat and fedora approached, holding a single business card. His eyes were unreadable, his presence unsettling. He extended the card toward her. Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she took it. In black ink, scrawled across the front, were 3 words that made her stomach drop. "Victor wants to see you." Her heart raced. She knew her life was about to change again, whether she wanted it to or not. Maya's hands shook as she stepped into the sleek elevator of Victor's Massachusetts penthouse building. The city lights blurred behind the glass as she ascended, each floor heightening the weight in her chest. She hated that she felt fear, hated that she was stepping directly into the lair of the man who had made her life feel so small. But there was no choice. The penthouse door opened, revealing Victor. He was perfectly composed, as if the events on the rooftop had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. His eyes, cold and calculating, swept over her like a predator assessing prey. "Miss Ellis," he said, voice smooth, controlled. "I didn't expect you to take my invitation seriously." Maya's jaw tightened. She stood straight, refusing to let the intimidation swallow her. Victor leaned casually against the bar, producing a check from his suit jacket. "I'll make it simple for you," he said, sliding the check across the counter. "Forget the game ever happened. Take the money, and we both move on." The sum was staggering, enough to erase months of rent, debt, and worry, but Maya's hands stayed at her sides. Her eyes met his, unflinching. "No," she said, her voice quiet but firm. The room's air shifted instantly. Victor's eyes darkened, the smooth charm of before replaced by something raw, dangerous. His lips pressed into a thin line. "You dare refuse me," he hissed, stepping closer, voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Maya felt the sharp edge of his wrath, and for the first time, She realized Victor Hawthorne did not forgive easily. His expression was deadly. Victor's hand hovered in the air, the tension palpable, the threat nearly physical. Maya's chest heaved as she tried to steady herself, wondering if she had miscalculated, if walking into this penthouse had been a fatal mistake. Then the door swung open. A tall figure filled the doorway, light catching her silver-streaked hair and sharp, commanding presence. Corinne Vale, a billionaire known not only for her wealth but for her unwavering reputation in business and philanthropy, stepped in. Her eyes scanned the room, settling immediately on Victor, who stiffened as if struck. "Maya Ellis," Corinne said, her voice calm but firm, carrying an authority that silenced the space between them. "You are safe here." Maya blinked, a wave of relief washing over her. She had heard of Corinne, someone who played the corporate world like a master, someone who stood up to men like Victor without flinching. The warmth in Corinne's tone contrasted sharply with the icy menace Victor radiated. Corinne approached, placing a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "Tell me everything that happened," she said, her voice steady, almost soothing. Maya's words tumbled out, a careful recounting of humiliation, threats, and intimidation. Corinne listened, nodding, eyes sharp and calculating. Finally, Corinne stepped back, the weight of her presence filling the room. She fixed Maya with a look that left no room for doubt. "You're coming to work with me," she said, voice resolute. "Double your old salary, and no one will ever treat you like that again." Maya's heart skipped. Relief and disbelief collided, but before she could speak, Victor's face twisted into fury. Maya adjusted her blazer and stepped into the conference room at Corinne Vale's Washington office, a cityscape of possibilities stretching behind the floor-to-ceiling windows. She was no longer the timid waitress hiding in the shadows. She was an assistant and strategist, helping organize high-profile charity events and financial outreach programs. Every detail she managed mattered, and for the first time, her voice carried weight. The work was demanding, yes, but invigorating. She found herself smiling without guilt, thinking about how she could help families access education, fund small businesses, and build futures. For the first time in years, Maya felt a flicker of hope, a sense that her life could expand beyond survival. Corinne was patient but exacting, guiding her, mentoring her, and treating her as an equal rather than a subordinate. Maya's evenings were still quiet, reflective. She'd walk past the Potomac, letting the lights ripple on the water, thinking of the path that had brought her here. Every struggle, every small humiliation, every risky decision that night on the rooftop seemed to have led to this fragile, sparkling moment. Then, just as she allowed herself a small sigh of relief, her phone buzzed. An email notification appeared from the courthouse. She clicked it with curiosity, and then her stomach plummeted. Victor had filed a lawsuit. The accusations were bold and false: theft, misappropriation of funds, and breach of contract. Maya's hands shook as she read, heart hammering in disbelief. He wasn't finished. Victor was coming for her again. Maya sat at her small desk, papers and legal briefs spread around her like a battlefield. Her fingers tapped nervously against the polished wood. The lawsuit loomed over her like a storm cloud. Victor's attempt to strip away her hard-won dignity, her new life, everything she had fought for. She could feel the weight of it pressing down, but she refused to let panic take control. Corinne Vale had assembled a team of top attorneys, some of the sharpest legal minds in Washington. Their confidence was infectious. They meticulously went over every detail of Victor's false claims, countering them with facts, witnesses, and the careful strategy Maya had begun to internalize from her father and refined under Corinne's mentorship. Meanwhile, Maya's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, acquaintances, and even strangers who had heard of her rooftop victory. "We saw what happened," one read. "You didn't just win, you showed the world courage." Another said, "Stay strong. He can't touch you if you don't let him." Each message was a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone. Later that evening, Corinne pulled Maya aside in her office. Her face was calm but serious, her eyes holding a secret weapon. "Maya," she said, reaching into her briefcase. "I recorded everything Victor said that night. Every threat, every intimidation, every lie." Maya's eyes widened, disbelief mixing with a surge of relief. Corinne smiled faintly. "This," she said, holding up a small device. is the key to ending this once and for all. Maya felt the room tilt with anticipation, knowing the next move could destroy Victor completely. Victor's empire began to crumble like a house of cards in a storm. News outlets picked up the story. Maya Ellis, the black waitress who had bested a billionaire at his own game, now fighting back against his false claims. Social media exploded. Millions shared her story, praising her courage, her intelligence, and her refusal to be intimidated. Each post, each comment, felt like another brick pulled from the walls Victor had built around himself. Maya watched the coverage quietly in Curran's Washington office, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over her. She had survived his threats, his manipulations, and now the world was seeing her truth. For the first time, she felt powerful, seen, and unshakably herself. A week later, she returned to New York, walking through the streets she had once hurried through with fear and exhaustion. The city smelled of rain and exhaust, of food trucks and possibility. She breathed deeply, savoring the familiar chaos, the life and energy that had once felt overwhelming but now felt like home. The victory felt surreal, but Maya knew that battles like these often drew the enemy to desperation. And tonight, her intuition whispered he would not give up. Her phone buzzed as she exited a quiet cafe, a text without a name. "We need to talk." Now, curious but wary, she followed the directions to a dimly lit parking garage. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across damp concrete. And there he was, Victor, alone, eyes wild with fury, a man who had lost everything and would do anything to reclaim control. Maya froze, heart hammering. Victor lunged, his voice a growl, his hands reaching toward her. Fear surged through Maya for the first time in weeks, but she didn't run. She planted her feet, drawing on every lesson from her father, her mother, and Corinne. Calm and steady, she met his fury with silence, letting his own rage become his weakness. Footsteps echoed from above. The police, tipped off by Corinne's team, appeared at the garage entrance, their badges gleaming under flickering lights. Victor froze, his eyes widening in disbelief, realizing his desperation had been anticipated. Officers moved quickly, handcuffing him as he screamed and struggled, the empire he'd relied on crumbling completely around him. Maya sank against a concrete pillar, heart still racing, rain dripping down her face. She closed her eyes, tears of relief spilling freely, washing away months of fear, tension, and uncertainty. The weight of Victor's threats, the shadow of his arrogance, and the danger he represented finally lifted. She looked out over the city, the quiet night stretching around her. The streets glistened with wet reflections, lights dancing across puddles. Whispering to herself, Maya smiled, voice low but filled with power. The world expects you to fold. But sometimes, the weakest hand changes everything. She turned from the garage, taking firm, confident steps toward the streets. Every stride felt lighter than the last, each one carrying the strength of her victories, her courage, and her newfound freedom. Maya Ellis walked into her new life, empowered, unbroken, transformed. Her story had only just begun. If Maya's story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another tale of courage and triumph. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even when the odds are stacked against you, one bold move can change everything. And comment below, what would you do if you were in Maya's shoes?